Actually, they're drawn that way. They can do whatever they want. It's fiction. Yeah.
I know. Okay? I know. We're just having fun here, doing these hypotheticals. Been doing this for years now, all right? I love doing it. It's just fun for me, all right? If you enjoy my vibe, stick around. If you don't, sit and spin. I don't give a damn. But we're going to talk about this just for the hell of it. But one thing I will talk about that they did bring up that I actually agree with is the fact that it is fiction, all right? So, like, just look at your favorite heroes from freaking comic books, video games, anime, whatever, your shows, cartoons, stuff like that. Like, they've always designed them to look their absolute best, so they can look like freaking anything because of the way they're drawn. And it just happens that the aesthetic that sells best is that, bodybuilder physique on stage, that freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger, perfect proportions, stuff like that physique. The reason that is just it looks so strong, it looks so masculine, it looks so powerful. That's why they always use it in media. So, like, sometimes it can just be a bit insane when they're like, oh yeah, my character, it looks like this, they're designed like this, they have like 3% body fat, and then like you go, wait, what? Yeah, like they can do all this awesome cool stuff though, bro. It's really dope, but it's just like, what? Because like once you like study all this stuff, like health and fitness wise, there's a bunch of stuff that starts clicking, you go, that just doesn't seem probable. Now, to go off the thing of like, would it be plausible to like have those type of physiques and fight like they do? Like, first off, let's just break this down to a couple pieces. The first thing we have to look at is the fact that there are big giant fighters out there. I've talked about them many, many times before. There are just tons of freaking guys out there who are yoked, who can throw punches, throw leg kicks, throw bombs that are just insane to witness. And it's just like, wow, dude, that looks like a real life Baki character. But when you like just go about looking at it and comparing realistically, there are a few things to look at. But something I want to bring up is most of those guys don't have true Baki King physiques. Now, I'm not saying that to belittle anyone at all. Like, what I'm saying, because I know a bunch of people will see this and be like, no, I have a Baki physique. I fight all the time and I do this. And it's just like, no. Like, this is what I'm saying right now. Okay, so there's this very common misconception with a lot of people where they see someone who's like big and massive and that equates them to being like on stage physique wise, just physique wise. That's all I'm talking about right now with like a bodybuilder who's on stage. Now, what I mean by that is let's take a few people who are just, got broad shoulders, ripped abs, and decently sized arms. So, think of someone like Chris Hemsworth Thor, Prime Mike Tyson, Anthony Joshua, there's a few right there. All right, these ones right here. They are all phenomenal physiques. All of them are great. They're big, they're ripped, they're aesthetic, they look freaking awesome. But if you put them next to someone who's like a legit bodybuilder, like on stage ready and prepped, then there's like a big discrepancy in physiques. And it's not because of the size, it's primarily because of the body fat, which we'll talk about in depth in a second. Also, another important thing to bring up is the fact that like being leaner makes you appear bigger. It's a cool optical illusion just because you have more muscularity showing. So if you have like a decent frame and you lose fat from that frame, a lot of people are going to think, oh my God, you got way bigger just because your muscles are more visible now, even if you are the same size. Hell, it works so well that if you were like a lean figure, like you had a lean body, and then you put 5 to 10 pounds on that lean body, people will think you put on like 30, 40 pounds because of how insane that look is. Because again, a lot of people will just see, decently sized arms, ripped abs, and broad shoulders, and they'll be like, that dude is like the equivalent of Hercules. Like he's insanely strong and powerful and all that, and he most definitely is. That's no one's taking that away from him. But what I'm saying is, if you're just saying, I'm talking purely about physique right now, the physique is not comparable to like that of a ripped bodybuilder on stage who's actively like got their body fat that low for a purpose, and that is not a bad thing. That's what I'm trying to get in y'all heads. Like these people look amazing, and they have like bodies that anyone would love to wake up with. And then they just are also athletic and put that to good use. They are able to use their bodies to the top of their advantage and get like the best out of them because they do it. If you're training like a bodybuilder to just that would be one of the main ways to get those type of physiques that you see in Baki, even with like that, of course. But something I want to talk about now is the difference between training like a bodybuilder and the difference than training like someone who has to do a sport like that, which is fighting all the time. Because if you're just trying to be a fighter, right? Because that's what you're asking. Like, if you want a physique like Baki, besides like that, you probably would do like a lot of bodybuilding just to get that aesthetic down, to make every muscle have every striation and feather, every vein is pulsating, every part of your body is sculpted, looking like it's chiseled out of marble. Now, if you're trained like a bodybuilder and do all that stuff while you're that as well, then of course you can look like that. And even naturally you can, but that's just a lot of work. But I'll talk about that again later in this video. But training like a bodybuilder and training like a fighter are two very different things, as I mentioned before. Like if you're training like a bodybuilder, then your just main goal is hypertrophy, making sure the muscles look absolutely sculpted and look beautiful as fuck, and then making them also just like as lean as possible for your your contest. So when you're on stage, you look like freaking either as massive as possible but as ripped as possible, so every muscle is just glowing. Or you're just trying to make yourself, as proportional as possible, depending on what your, thing is. It could be men's physique, it could be bodybuilding, and that's completely fine as well. But I'm saying, if you were to do that, just that type of training routine, and then try to get into a ring with someone who actually trains like an actual fighter, you would get laid the hell out, like pretty dang bad, just from conditioning, power, stamina. There's a bunch of stuff that they don't take into consideration. You won't become super strong. You can't become like strong and muscular, but for the most part, your thing isn't about strength and power. It's just about looking good. And the Baki characters, look at him. He's a freaking god. He looks like freaking aesthetically, he's blessed like everything. Which I have another video which I won't spoil coming up later this week with some Joseph action. But I just wanted to bring that up very clearly because a lot of people get that in their heads that, if I train this way, I can look this way as well. And that's not necessarily the case. And of course, there's always going to be outliers. Like I always say, everybody is different and reacts differently because not everyone is the same. There are some people out there who could do that sort of routine, and then their body will just allow them to do that. And I'll talk about that later in depth in a later video coming this week. But that's just something to keep in mind as well with it. But one of the biggest things about the Baki physique and fighting isn't the muscle size, as we've talked about, because here's a great one. Here's Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White is a beast. Like he is a legit beast in all the stuff he's able to accomplish. Like you can go watch a dude fight, go watch a dude kick. Dude is big, moves like a featherweight. It's insane. But here is something he mentioned when doing his video. Like he was talking about when he was getting ready for the Universal Soldier 2. And when he trained for the Universal Soldier 2, he had to get super lean, and I'll just let him say it for himself.
The one on the far left, I'm 240. The one on the right, I'm 210 pounds. Right now, I'm roughly 215. On Universal Soldier, The Return, probably was my leanest. I was about 208 during Universal Soldier, 208, 210 some days. And but actually, I paid the price. I was on a really unique diet. But what I did was trick my body into losing all of its body fat. But it got me down to 3%, and I got very, very sick. I caught the flu. And at the end of the shooting, I had to be rushed to the hospital. My sweet spot has always been right where I am now, about between 215 and 220. And even when I get down lower, I get more lean. But as I mentioned, that makes me more susceptible to getting sick.
Because remember this, it's not just the size, it's the body fat percentage as well. So for example, if you were built like the Big Show, think like the Big Show, right? And you were like freaking 2% body fat, 3% body fat, just like freaking just all muscle. All right, your way of moving would not be as efficient as if you had a higher body fat percentage. Well, I even talked about this in a previous video, so bam. Because again, if you're a bigger guy who is leaner, it is a lot more taxing to do long endurance stuff like fighting is. Like you can do like short bursts and be like super athletic and lean and stuff like that. But if you're trying to like fight for like, I don't know, 15 rounds, like freaking Ali back in the day, then it's going to just be a lot more gassing to you. So if you're not trained for it. So that's just something to keep in mind with this whole ordeal of like Kengan and Baki physiques. Like they're these big giant bodybuilders fighting like freaking like pro athletes at the top of their VO2 maxes where they're able to just keep going and going and going and going. And it's Jax with science facts. Nerd time. Let's get through this. So I'm just going to break this down and make it super easy to understand and not make it overly needlessly complicated or anything like that. So all you got to do is follow along with me. Now, some things I will admit I've talked about in previous workouts, so I won't go as in depth with those ones. But again, you can go look at the playlist and check them out. And be sure to hit that subscribe button because I talk about this stuff all the time. We have a lot of fun here. But let's break this down. So right here, we have our lot of muscle Bakioma motherfucker. Yes, long name, but he's a really cool dude. Likes to bodybuild in his spare time. Now, What does that mean? He has larger than average muscles, which means that his muscle fibers are larger than average as well. And if we talked about in my Kenichi with that workout, when we talked about the peak muscle theory, you can swipe up and check that out whenever you want to. And to put it simply, muscle fibers come in a different variety of flavors. There's slow twitch muscle fibers, which primarily work on endurance. So think of marathon runners like having to run miles and miles on end and having to stay, gas the entire way through. And then there's fast twitch explosive muscle fibers. Think of like athletes like sprinters or football players or fighters who really want to end the fight quick where they have to like dash in, but that can be a huge later on as well. And as we see, the muscle is a very